Review. I'm the Wild Reviewer, and today I'm gonna review.
Hey there, how are you?
Hello there. My name's the Wild Reviewer, or at least that's what I've been told. And this is a series I used to do called The Wild Review. It was a review series that ran for 6 seasons from 2015 to 2018. Everything since then has either been a mini-series or this in particular series, Rewild. A series I've created that allows me to look back at some old Wild Review episodes to see if what I talked about still holds up today. Because I have changing opinions. I am a growing boy, and some things I've said about TV shows or movies or just other various topics may have changed within the last couple of years, and that's what I'm setting out to do here. I'm gonna look back at various different Wild Review episodes to see if what I said is something I can still agree with. Or maybe I'm just making fun of my younger self. That's very possible. So, unless you have something better to do, which part of me highly doubts, seems like you're gonna be stuck with me for the next couple of minutes as we take a trip into the past. This is the Wild Review Rewild. This season has a theme also. We're going on a road trip.
Wild like wild.
Hello, welcome to the Wild Review, and welcome back to another episode of Rewild, the series where I take a look at some previous episodes of the Wild Review, test them to see if they still hold up, and if they don't, they are executed to hell. Today I'm at McDonald's. The proper McDonald's. Across the street we have the new and improved McDonald's, or the wannabe McDonald's, if you know what I mean. McDonald's is a humongous franchise. Everybody knows what McDonald's is. And everybody also knows the history of McDonald's, or at least the history that we see. You can always tell just what decade a certain McDonald's comes from. If you see this kind of McDonald's, you know what decade this came from, and even what generation it offered its services to. And then you look at something like this kind of McDonald's, and all that comes to your mind is what happened. You know, at least that's how I feel with McDonald's. I feel like it was a massive downgrade. Even the commercials kind of suck. I did a video a few years back. It's actually one of my favorite Wild Reviews I've ever done, where I went over a bunch of holiday commercials, and one batch of commercials I looked at were McDonald-themed Christmas commercials, and I talked a little about how I feel about the change McDonald's did to not just their marketing, but also how they look. Anyway, how this relates is because today we are going to be looking at a Wild Review that actually isn't that old, but we're at the point now where I've been doing Rewild long enough that I can talk about every episode of the Wild Review up until the holiday series that I've done. When I first did Rewild, I believe it was season 3 I was going up to, because the whole purpose of me doing Rewild was looking back on those episodes of the Wild Review where I was playing a character, kind of forming a show within my review show. Last season, season 2, I amped it up a little bit by talking about episodes from season 4 and 5 of the Wild Review, and today is the very first Rewild episode where I will be looking at a season 6 episode, The Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald, an old video series that McDonald's used to do. It didn't last very long, but I talked about it in season 6, mainly because in season 6 I was doing a little theme with that season. I wanted to be a little creative and different with the Wild Review that season, so I implemented the idea of doing a Lost and Found season. Throughout that season, I talked about television shows specifically that I felt like have been lost to time. Shows that were once on television or once in the public eye, and then they were just gone. Nobody's ever heard from them ever again. Kind of sounds like streaming shows nowadays, am I right? The Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald was not a television series necessarily. It was a VHS video series, which I go through what VHS is if you don't know what that is, although I'm pretty sure everybody knows what a VHS is. Maybe not the really little ones, but even if you're a teenager, you probably know what VHS is. I find it so interesting that despite this media being ancient, it's still kind of relevant. I mean, people still have VHS tapes, they still have VCRs, some people have DVD players. They aren't being advertised as much now, but they're still around. I'm sure there's somewhere out there on eBay or Amazon or any other platform you can buy stuff off of. Not Toys R Us, because that's gone too. Right? With that said, why don't we dive back into 5 years ago, Season 6, 2018, as we take a look at my episode of The Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald. I felt like I was going to burp there for a second. It's because of all the McDonald's I probably have been eating now that I'm here. Oh, there we go. Let's see what I had to say about The Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald and see if it still holds up today. Today, I'm going to do some cheating, because I'm not talking about a television show at all. In fact, I don't believe this show hit television. It definitely was a series for children, except rather than being broadcast on television, it was broadcasted in the form of VHS tapes. That's right, folks, we're going to talk about some home videos. Kids today will never understand the glory we had with VHS tapes. And yes, compared to DVDs, they were annoying. You had to put the VHS in the VCR, and if you were at a certain spot that you didn't want to be at, you had to rewind the tape, possibly rewind it all the way to the beginning. Yeah, there are some aspects that can be very annoying, but the second you think of VHS, nostalgia just hits your head. I had so many VHS tapes, in fact I still have a few, not of the shows I used to watch, those are all on DVD now, but VHS tapes were kinda cool. I don't know about you, but home media is looking pretty good now. Here's my hot take about streaming sites and digital media. I think streaming sites are pretty neat. I think we can all agree that there's just something about having everything all together in one place that is very satisfying. So the idea that you have something like Disney Plus that is supposed to have every Disney movie, every Disney show, anything Disney is in one place and you can watch it as long as you have a subscription to it, I think that's pretty neat. With that said, it's not the most reliable thing. You do need the internet in order to use it. That's problem number one, and it's very rare that the internet ever goes out. But I actually remember when Disney Plus first launched, there was a blackout. It kept crashing because so many people were using it, so that's definitely a problem. They seem to have a handle on that now, but let's get into the main issue with streaming sites. They keep taking things off and censoring things. HBO Max is the biggest example. Oh, I'm sorry. Max. That's what they're called now. What is that, like the fourth name change that they've had? Max is the biggest example. I think I might have discussed this a while ago, but they are the kings of just taking things off of streaming sites and just making them disappear. Elliot from Earth, does anybody know that show? It's by the creators of The Amazing World of Gumball. I don't have HBO Max, and it was an HBO Max original. However, they did air it on Cartoon Network at one point, so I was able to watch it. I think it was like within a month they put out all the episodes. I don't understand that logic, but then again, kids networks and airing shows they don't think are going to be very successful, even though they could if they advertised it properly. That's always been a major problem. In my opinion, I don't think Elliot from Earth was the best show. Definitely compared to Gumball, I don't know if it was exactly the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But then again, it was only on its first season, and it did end on a cliffhanger, and I feel like it would have gone somewhere pretty interesting. I mean, name me one show that was honestly at its greatest when it was on its first season. Very rarely does that happen. I mean, you have shows like The Office, which I think it's the biggest example. Some people stop watching The Office after the first season, but you get in the middle of season 3, and it's the best show ever. Sometimes shows need to find their footing, and unfortunately Elliot from Earth didn't get that chance, and now it's definitely not going to get that chance because that's not on HBO Max anymore. Something that was an original on the streaming site is no longer on the streaming site, which means now it's just lost to time. And the same thing goes for a bunch of other shows. I think they took off Infinity Train, they took off a bunch of original Cartoon Network shows, and at the time of recording this, at the beginning of August, they're going to be taking down Over the Garden Wall, which is actually another show that I will be discussing later on this season on Rewild. I think it'd be a nice little revisit. They're going to be taking that off at the end of August. By the time this goes out, it'll already probably be off, which sucks because fall is right around the corner, and Over the Garden Wall is a fantastic thing to watch in the month of autumn. I've kind of gone on a little tangent here and definitely off track, but what I am trying to get at here is that streaming sites are not as great as I think everybody thought they were going to be. I think Final Space was also one of those shows, and that sucked because Final Space was pretty cool, and the fact that I don't think it has a home anymore, that just really sucks. So now the only place you can really watch these things are pirated sites, which I don't think is the right thing to do because it's pirated. Arrgh. This is why home media is great. I will always be an advocate for home media. I think DVDs and, yeah, I'll even say VHS tapes, even though they don't make them anymore, but it'd be great if they did. Home media is the best thing to have. And I know you can't trust that either. There are some negatives when it comes to home media, like the DVDs could get scratched up or it could break and you can lose them, but at least you have it. And you're guaranteed to have it forever. In short, VHS tapes are awesome. Something else that the kids these days are missing out on is Ronald McDonald. Everyone should know who Ronald McDonald is. He's the mascot of McDonald's. The jumpy red-headed and white-faced clown with the big yellow jumper suit as he pranced around everywhere, eating Big Macs and French fries and promoting his fast food everywhere that he went. I think they're bringing Ronald McDonald back, I think. I have a gut feeling they are, because within the last year we've had 2 marketing campaigns that have brought back McDonald Land characters. And one of them is responsible for the murder of thousands. The Mandela effect hit me very hard with this video cassette series, because a lot of things I remember very differently. Like, I remember Sunday not being so creepy in his puppet version. I also remember Ronald McDonald's hair not being all spiky in the animated version, even though in real life his hair was curly. Yeah, to elaborate on that a little, each VHS tape would start off with a live segment of Ronald and his dog Sunday, who was never in the commercials. He was just added for this video series. Oh my god! I like the live action segments mixed with animation. I always liked that. There was just something about blending the styles that always fascinated me. But in this case, this actually, is what I like the most, I think. I feel like there's another show that I've seen that starts off as live action and then goes into animation world. I've always just really liked that element to television shows, regardless if it was a children's show or an adult show, although I don't think adult shows do that, but I've just always liked that style. The live-action segments would always connect with what's actually going to be happening within the story. You'd see them in the beginning, transition into McDonald Land, where... What the hell was that? I think there was an editing mistake there that I caught 5 years later. I watched these over before I put them out. I would have noticed that. Ronald and his dog would jump in a ball pit, a really cool ball pit that would influence me to go into a ball pit and play around in the McDonald's playpen. And that would transition into the animated world, McDonald Land, and then we would see, after their adventure back... I was definitely influenced by that. I was a kid, and I would go to McDonald's and play in the playpens when they had them. They have since gotten rid of all of them, apparently. I've never had the ball pit, though. I never had the McDonald's ball pit. But even when I was playing in the tubes and the slide, I remember I would watch the pirate McDonald's video, which it was the only one that I had. Arrgh. And I remember seeing that and seeing Ronald transform into the animated version of himself, and he would go into his animated world, and every time I would go down the slide, I would always think that. And I just thought that was really cool. I think even in Chuck E. Cheese, when I would go to Chuck E. Cheese as a kid, I would even think about that as I was going down the slide at Chuck E. Cheese. Does Chuck E. Cheese still have its tubes and slide? Or did they get rid of those as well? Those were fun. I like those. Something I always found a bit odd, though, is that most of the time in the beginning of the episode, when it's the live-action segment, any of the other McDonald Land characters, whenever they would show up on the screen in the live-action segment, they would always be CGI. I mean, I guess that makes a little sense, seeing that the characters are supposed to be animated, and in our world they're going to be CGI characters, but if Sunday's a puppet, then why wouldn't you make the other characters puppets? More or less, why wouldn't you just keep them as 2D animation characters, seeing that we're watching them on a screen? Yeah, I'd have to say I still have a question about that. Why are they CGI? Why weren't they just 2D animated on the screens? That would have made so much more sense. Or why didn't you just make puppet versions of them to fit in with how Sunday looks in this world? Except for the Hamburglar. You don't need a puppet for the Hamburglar. You could have easily just put a wig on somebody, you could have put the hat, the mask, you could have made an actual person the Hamburglar, because the Hamburglar is a human. It works out. These videotapes ran from 1998 all the way to 2003. There were only 6 actually made. I don't know exactly why they stopped making them. Oh wait, I can kind of guess. I can't remember the last time Ronald McDonald was even in a commercial. I think the last time was right before they had introduced the Hey, McDonald's. Never bring those things back. Thank you. I remember when I first remembered this series only a few years ago, I went back to check out some old clips of it because I just wanted to have the nostalgic feel come to me, and I always found one specific episode, or in this case, a home video, very odd. There was one adventure that focused on Birthday World, but the theme song to it in the opening was very different from the others that we've seen with Ronald and Sunday in the house. As a matter of fact, Sunday wasn't even in this opening, it was only Ronald, and the house was completely different. I later learned that the 4th video is where things started to change a little. Sunday was taken out of the live action segments, I wonder why, and put into the animation segments, and Ronald's house just changed for some reason. I don't know, the first house looked very house-like. This one just looks like a studio set. You're not convincing me that this is his house if he's got all this open space. At least show me his bed! Yeah, there was this weird point in this video series where they just completely changed everything. Keep in mind, like I've been saying, I only had the pirate video, but I saw another McDonald's video on YouTube. I unfortunately did not get to watch all of the Ronald McDonald videos, mainly because they weren't on YouTube at the time. But I do know, based on all the research I did at the time for this video, I didn't do that much research, but I knew enough to put together a video, that there was a change within the video series, and I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they just didn't keep the story with Ronald with his dog, and then they go into McDonald Land. I thought that was pretty neat. I thought that was a cool thing, but it seemed like that they pulled a change in seasons, as you would call it on a television show. Whenever one thing is in one season, they completely change it, and now suddenly there's a new thing. The Fresh Prince effect. One day, Aunt Viv looks like this. Next day, she looks like this. Nobody knows why. It just is. Oh, their house changed too. But I liked the first McDonald house. I'm not entirely sure why they changed it. I do agree it looks like a set. The first house looked like a house. Another thing I never noticed about this when I was little was I never realized that this was animated by... It's the same company that makes Rugrats and later All That. Alright, I'm gonna say it. I only included that clip because I didn't know how to properly say it and I was embarrassed, but I'm gonna do it now because I'm a man. Klasky Skapoo. This is a series I could definitely say deserves to have the title of being lost, because I highly doubt anybody remembers these, unless you collected like all 6 of them. The fact that this didn't even make it on TV told you that it wasn't going to be a television series. I don't really know why the main purpose of these videos were made. Maybe it was like a marketing plan for kids to watch these shows and then go and get McDonald's, because at the end of every video, Ronald would always say,
"This is your very own clown, Ronald McDonald. Hoping I'll see you next time, live and in person at McDonald's."
I don't think it would have worked if it was a full TV show. In fact, I don't think any fast food joint with characters should have a TV show. Does that sound mean? I mean, you know, it could work. I could see it. I don't know how successful it would be because, well, I don't know. The commercials were already their show. This is something that I don't think a lot of people know about commercials, or at least realize about commercials. Whenever you have recurring characters in a commercial, that's technically their show. They have a quick slot to tell a quick story, advertise what they're supposed to be advertising, and that's it. The progressive commercials with Flo, any cereal commercial with the mascots, they really don't do those anymore. And the same could be said with McDonald's. The McDonald's commercials can essentially be compared to Mickey Mouse shorts or Looney Tunes shorts. They were quick little advertisements that told a really quick story. They were meant to entertain you, meant to stick into your head and want you to go to McDonald's. It was a trap for you to buy their product. But they were also trying to entertain with quick little stories to catch the child's attention. And for that to be a television series consisting of 22-minute episodes, something about it doesn't feel right. It feels like massive advertising. But that's what this is! What's the difference between this compared to them doing a television show? Or maybe even a movie? Or the commercials that we like? Is it all just an advertising stunt for me to buy the McFries? By the way, did you know there is a McDonald's movie? I found this out years later, but apparently McDonald's is partly responsible for a movie called Mac and Me, which is supposed to be this bootleg version of E.T. I've never seen the movie personally. I would like to, though. I'd like to see this weird film. I only know it because I've seen people talk about it, and I'm just amazed that it was a real thing, so I did a little research on it. I would love to see Mac and Me at some point. Is it free on YouTube? YouTube does free movies sometimes. Maybe I'll see if it's free, and if so, I'll give it a watch. So I've seen 3 out of the 6 of them, and especially watching it recently, I've gotten the vibe that it is a very odd show. Not just with the character designs, but just the whole aspect of it altogether. Don't get me wrong, I like the whole transition with Ronald and his dog jumping into a ball pit and going to McDonald Land, but that leaves me the question, if they're going into McDonald Land, where are they supposed to be living? There's a giant McDonald's house just in this little town. Isn't that McDonald Land? Yeah, that is a question. Where is McDonald Land? I'm assuming it's the same McDonald Land that we see in the commercials, but I always found those really interesting because all they eat is McDonald's. You know, Morgan Spurlock ate McDonald's for an entire month and he almost died. Was he not doing it right like you, Ronald McDonald? Also, is Ronald McDonald the mayor of McDonald Land because his last name's McDonald? All these different questions, they hurt my mind. Ronald McDonald isn't the mayor or the leader in McDonald Land, but his last name is McDonald. And McDonald Land has a mayor, Mayor McCheese. I'm just thinking real hard today, aren't I? I feel like I hear the ice cream man. He's driven by my house 4 times so far. I'm not going to say the adventures were very pointless because, you know, they're the typical adventures you would expect characters to go to. You know, with camping and going into space and a treasure hunt. Those are the typical stuff. So here's something really interesting. I typed in the Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald on Google, and it gives me the cast list, but nowhere does it tell me who Ronald McDonald is. Is it this guy, David Hussey? Well, that doesn't look right. Wrong guy! Wrong guy! It's Joe Maggard. He played Ronald McDonald for the longest time. Why the hell is David Hussey in this? I couldn't find any information on why these videos were made. I couldn't find the reasons why they stopped. There's really nothing else for me to say about this topic, mostly because there really isn't anything else to talk about with them. Like, all the information I found about the Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald, it's like everything's kept secret about it. So either somebody needs to come out and give more information about why this series was a thing, or I just didn't do a very good job looking stuff up. Alright, so I just spent the last couple of minutes on McDonald's Winky, looking up the Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald, because I'm trying to find the answer 5 years later as to why these were made, and I can't find anything. If you go down to the trivia, there's only one of them. Ronald is shown to have several mysterious powers, including a magical breath that can push things and give life to inanimate objects, clean rooms, and lead animals away. He also has the ability to call animals when in aid, and the ability to move a room upside down in order to escape. Nothing really helps me on the normal Wikipedia site when you type in this series. However, I'm learning now that the final video, the Monster O McDonald Land Lock, is apparently the rarest out of the 6 episodes that were made. This episode was released online only on the Kolaski Skapo website in 2003, opposed from McDonald's stores. Because I didn't mention it, although I'm pretty sure it was obvious, you were able to get these VHS tapes if you went to McDonald's. So that's pretty interesting. I guess I should search to see if that's still a lost item. But as for why they made these videos, I'm just gonna go on a hunch and say they did them because money. It's marketing. Let's turn our fast food characters into an animated series and people will buy our stuff. Also, maybe it was for fun. It was one of those two things, but I'm pretty sure it was money. That's all I could think of. So that's my little talk about the wacky adventures of Ronald McDonald. Overall, I thought it was a pretty cool series looking back at it. It was definitely some part of my childhood, even though I only owned one of the VHS tapes. Sunday is still a very creepy looking puppet. I'm very glad they never did a Rugrats puppet episode because I'm sure that would have probably been horrifying. Sunday also does not creep me out anymore. It wasn't even a puppet, it was a costume. I guess it was a costume puppet. And I've recently just learned that this guy apparently played him. Now, he didn't do the voice. D. Bradley Baker, also known as Perry the Platypus, did the voice. Vern Troyer played Sunday, the costume version of Sunday. He was also Mini-Me in the Austin Powers movies, and sadly he passed away on April 21st, 2018. And I will be honest, I didn't know he played Sunday, but I learned something. You learn something every day. Well, this was fun. As for this review of the Wacky Adventures of Ronald McDonald, I think it holds up. Again, this was 2018, so my thoughts really haven't changed that much, apart from me thinking Sunday was creepy. I thought it was a cute series, still kind of holds up today. This is why I didn't want to talk about episodes from Season 4 to Season 6, or even any of the holiday special series in Rewild early on, because the thoughts were still so fresh. Had I talked about this or any episode from Season 6 and Season 1 of Rewild, it would have been boring. I still agreed with what I said, because there wasn't that much time that had gone by when I had made the original video. This was 2008, and I started in 2021, so that was like, what, a 3-year difference? But now it's 5 years, and there's a big difference. I mean, kind of. I still feel the same way. So Ronald McDonald's Wacky Adventures are pretty cool. They still hold up today, and I didn't say anything stupid, which is important. Well, looks like it's getting dark here in McDonald Land. That's not where I am, but you know what? We'll make it McDonald Land now. There's the moon guy from Mac Tonight. Is that what that advertisement was? They tried doing this thing where they wanted to make McDonald's a hip place for adults at night. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't around for that then. Whatever the case is, I think I'm going to chill here for now and wait until morning when I can go on my next adventure and we can look at something else from the Wild Reviews past. Until then, that's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you liked what you saw, give it a like, give it a comment. I really don't care what you do. You do whatever your heart desires. I'll be here regardless. Come back next week. I'll be doing the exact same thing I did today, next week, and for the remainder of the series. If you have a suggestion, any suggestions for what other Wild Review episodes you would like me to look back on, let me know in the comments below. Maybe I'll take a look at them. Maybe. And if you agreed or you disagreed with anything that was said here, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you'd like to see the original episode that I looked back at today, that link will be in the description below, as well as the previous 2 seasons of Rewild. You can check those out as well. And that's it for me today. Thanks for watching The Wild Review. I'm The Wild Reviewer, and you just saw me review a thing.
Wild like